The deep state has a new plan to radically transform so-called capitalism, and I kid you not, it brings together the Pope, the Rothschilds, and the megabanks. Stay tuned and I'll tell you more. Pope Francis and the Vatican he leads are doubling down on this deep state globalist push for global technocracy, global, really fascism in the economy. So they've created this new thing called the Coalition for Inclusive Capitalism with the Vatican. And they're literally bringing together some of the top mega banks of the world, some of the top crony big businesses, leaders of the United Nations, the Rothschild banking dynasty, we'll come back to them, the Rockefeller Foundation, and many other key institutions of the global elite. Of course, critics are not pleased by this. The globalists are basically coming out of the closet, but now they've got the support of the leader of one of the world's key major religions, and so we are heading into some very strange times, guys. According to this new coalition, and I want to show you just a quick little clip, they're going to evolve capitalism so that it's more inclusive and sustainable. Check out this little promo clip that they created.
È necessario urgente un sistema economico giusto, affidabile e in grado di rispondere alle sfide più radicali che l'umanità e il pianeta si trovano ad affrontare.
We are answering Pope Francis's challenge to create more inclusive economies that spread the benefits of capitalism more equitably and allow individuals to realize their full potential.
And one of the key elements of this, as they've explained on their websites and in their talks, is implementing the UN Agenda 2030 so-called Sustainable Development Goals. Check out this clip from the executive chairman of DuPont talking about how important this is to the agenda.
Aligning our innovation with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the priorities of inclusive capitalism is both a business and sustainability imperative.
Now, for those of you who don't remember Agenda 2030, we did a whole episode on it. It is absolutely terrifying. It's this global UN plan to transform everything. They say it's the master plan for humanity. We're going to redistribute everybody's wealth, or at least the middle class wealth. We're going to put governments in charge of healthcare. Basically, it's a recipe for technocratic global government. So go back and watch our episode on that if you haven't seen it. It's a plan to wage war on individual liberty, on the nation state, on the free market, on private property rights. And I mean, they're just out in the open about it now. And this Alliance for Inclusive Capitalism is openly aligning with this crazy UN agenda. And of course, the Pope, Pope Francis, was a critical player in all this. And so to kind of summarize what's going on here, guys, this new alliance is putting a religious garb on this agenda for a new world order. Now, what is inclusive capitalism? I mean, that's the name of the alliance, but what does it actually mean in practice? Well, they have actually been working on this for a long time. Another term they use for it is stakeholder capitalism, and it's really not capitalism at all. It's a fusion of central planning and private property. It's very much along the lines of fascism. So public-private partnership, right? This idea that the government will do some and the private corporations will do some. If you remember, Adolf Hitler's National Socialist, that was the idea, right? They called it fascism, National Socialism, but that was the idea. You could still own private property, you could still own your factory, you could still have your business. However, instead of you deciding as the owner of that business what your business was going to do to make money, basically to best satisfy the needs and the wants of your customers, the government would decide for you what you needed to do. Well, we need you to produce 1,000 cars. We need you to produce tanks. We need you to produce bombs. We need you to obey these dictates from the government. It's exactly what happened under Nazi Germany, and really it's what they're talking about here with this inclusive capitalism. Rather than having businesses and business owners decide what they want to do based on earning profit to satisfy the needs and the wants of customers in the most effective way, the most cost-effective way, the highest quality. Now you have the global elites and their technocrats coming up with all these new goals, just like central planners of yesteryear. And they'll say, well, we want you to do such and such for the environment. We want you to do such and such for society. We want you to put money behind the Black Lives Matter Marxist globalist movement. We want you to basically do what we say. We want you to promote LGBT agenda and all the rest of it. And that's what's coming, guys, with this inclusive capitalism. According to their website, they represent more than $10.5 trillion under management, more than $2 trillion in market capitalization. They've got 200 million workers between them, and they have offices across 163 countries. These are some of the most powerful economic players on the planet, some of the biggest companies, the most powerful banks, and some of the most powerful foundations. In total, they've got 27 of what they're calling the guardians of inclusive capitalism, and many of these have actually been notorious over the years for peddling abortion, homosexuality, transgenderism, the ridiculous race mongering. So to give you some idea of who these people are, we've got leaders from the UN, we've got the leaders from Visa, MasterCard, Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson, British Petroleum, MasterCard, Salesforce, the state of California, right? Their treasurer, who's a radical abortion fanatic. You've got the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the most evil foundations on the planet. You've got the Ford Foundation. We did a whole episode on the big foundations. I want to show you one clip real quick. This is the chief investigator for the select committee that Congress created to investigate tax-exempt foundations. And he said right when he started his research, the head of the Ford Foundation called him into his office, his name was Alan Geither, and told him what they were doing. Check out this clip from Norman Dodd, the chief investigator of the Congressional Select Committee that investigated these foundations.
Would you like to know what the substance of these directives is? I said, yes, Mr. Geither, I'd like very much to know. Whereupon he made this statement to me, namely, Mr. Dodd, we here operate on in response to similar directives, the substance of which is that we shall use our grant-making power so to alter life in the United States that it can be comfortably merged with the Soviet Union.
All right, so merging the United States with the Soviet Union, that is what the big foundations were doing back in the 50s, okay? And if you think anything has changed, you are kidding yourself. These people are still trying to promote a one-world totalitarian system. The Ford Foundation is, of course, instrumental in that. And I can guarantee you, while these corporations just jumped in bed with the Vatican and they promised they're going to wage war on carbon dioxide, the gas of life, and all the rest of it, one thing they won't be doing is stopping their promotion of abortion and homosexuality and globalism. Now, one of the key people involved in this is actually Lynn Forrester de Rothschild. She is a member of the Rothschild dynasty. She's also the managing partner of Inclusive Capital Partners, which, of course, goes right along with this inclusive capitalism agenda. And just to give you a sense of how powerful this family is, they're the ones who created George Soros, okay? They have a private bank, one of many banks that they own in Switzerland called Banque Privée in Geneva. And this is the bank that actually funded George Soros back when he was a little nobody who had been helping the Nazis as a child and who has no guilt about it. True story. You can see the videos of that. So that's who the Rothschilds are, right? They're the ones who created George Soros, and we're allowed to criticize George Soros, but we're not allowed to talk about the Rothschilds. Now, to give you a sense of how far back this power goes, there is a deep state bootlicker, an apologist for the Rothschilds named Niall Ferguson, and he gets to go to the Bilderberger things, and he gets to be a good little pet of the global elites as long as he does his job. And so he wrote a book basically apologizing for how wonderful the Rothschilds were. And in this book, it's called The World's Banker, The History of the House of Rothschilds. He says, and I quote, "The Rothschilds had decided the outcome of the Napoleonic Wars by putting their financial weight behind Britain." Okay, imagine being a family and having the power to decide the outcome of a war between the two most powerful governments on the planet. Okay, that is the House of Rothschild. They are really, if you think about it, the ultimate examples of money changers, right? They create money out of thin air through their banks, through the fractional reserve system. They own huge shares in the central banks of the world. They dominate political systems, and they are really just the ultimate money changers, right? They don't actually produce very much that's useful. They don't produce really goods and services. They just create money, and they charge interest on it. And these are exactly like the money changers that Jesus, he went into the temple, and these money changers are in there profiting. And what did he do? He flipped over their tables and he hollered at them, right? He was really mad, right? So he chased them out of the Jewish temple. Like, get out of here, right? You guys have made my father's house a den of thieves. Well, This is the Rothschilds, and they are, of course, key players in all this. I want to show you a little quick quote from Lynn de Rothschild while they were announcing this inclusive capitalism baloney. Check it out.
We are answering Pope Francis's challenge to create more inclusive economies that spread the benefits of capitalism more equitably and allow individuals to realize their full potential.
Now, so one of the things that this council is going to promote, according to their website, is not just equality of opportunity, but also, and I'm quoting here, equitable outcomes, right? Now, in America and in other Western countries, we have had equality under the law for all people for decades now. I mean, there's no need anymore to pursue quote unquote equality. We all have equality of opportunity. We all have equality under the law. However, this idea of equitable outcomes, stop and think about it, right? You cannot have equitable outcomes and still be free. Okay, you can't be free and equal, and you can't be equal and free. People have different talents. People have different passions. Some people want to work 100 hours a week. Some people want to work 20 hours a week. How can you have equitable outcomes when you have this huge diversity of different people with different interests and different talents, right? The only way to do it is to make them all slaves, all right? That's exactly the same garbage that communist dictators all around the world for the last 100 years who've slaughtered hundreds of millions of people have said. We want everybody to be equal, right? And by equal, we mean dirt poor slaves, except us. Of course, we will be more equal than the other animals. We will live high on the hog, and you will like it. Okay, that is what these people are promoting. And again, right, all you have to do is look at the data. If you really care about the environment, the best economic system to save the environment is economic freedom. The data shows it clearly. The cleanest countries in the world with the best environments are the freest countries economically. The Scandinavian countries, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Ireland, right? Japan. These are the countries that are at the top of the heap. If you want to find the most polluted and disgusting countries, go to the countries where communism reigns or has reigned, right? Cuba, North Korea, the former Soviet Union, China, right? It's just a grotesque abomination of pollution. Same thing with equality. If you really value equality, the most equal societies in the world and the most prosperous societies in the world are the ones that have free market capitalism. The ones that move away from free market capitalism do not have that. So that's what they're promising, right? We're going to all have environmental sustainability and, of course, gender equality, which is really just code word for the globalist radical feminism, abolishing or waging war on the family, promoting abortion, getting women into the workforce so that they don't stay home with their children, waging war on private property rights. Right? This is what they're going for, guys, and they're telling us this is where they're going. And they've been doing it for a long time. At the New American, we actually did an article in 2014. The Rothschilds convened this crazy summit in London. They called it the Inclusive Capitalism Summit, and they peddled the same garbage, right? Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation were a big part of it. The Rockefeller Foundation, of course, has been promoting this idea in America for a long time. They've been trying to get these laws passed at the state level where you create a benefit corporation, where instead of being a normal corporation that pursues profit for shareholders and value for consumers, you become a benefit corporation where you do the bidding of the global elites on environmental, social, and governance goals, right? Some of the attendees at this Inclusive Capitalism Summit in London, you had Prince Charles, right? A key player in the Great Reset. You had the head of the International Monetary Fund at that time, Christine Lagarde. You had former U.S. President Bill Clinton. You had the head of the Bank of England at that time, a Rothschild puppet, Mark Carney, globalist Bilderberger. You had the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers, big business CEOs, and all the rest. They said they had 1/3 of the world's investable wealth represented at this abomination of a summit. One of the keynote speakers, of course, was Lagarde, who was running the IMF at that time. They hope to turn the IMF into a global central bank with a global currency. We've done an episode on this that will fund the global government. And, of course, she started off by quoting Karl Marx. True story.
Who predicted that capitalism in its excess carried the seeds of its own destruction.
After quoting the genocidal maniac Karl Marx, who of course was a Satanist, as you can see from his poetry published in Marx and Satan, just blatantly revealing his just crazy hatred for God and his love for Satan, Lagarde went on to go quote Pope Francis.
Pope Francis recently put it in stark terms when he called increasing inequality the root of social evil.
And all I could think of was the Bible, Timothy 6, verse 10, where the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Presumably that would include social evils as well. Some translations use all kinds of evil, but the point is the same, right? The love of money is the root of all evil, not inequality. Right? If you want to see what the love of money looks like, you can look at these people involved in these new little coalitions, starting with, of course, the Rothschilds, right? Now, all this stuff comes right as we're promoting this idea of the Great Reset, right? The World Economic Forum, the IMF, the UN, the British monarchy, Klaus Schwab, we've all must be transformed, right? We're going to have a Great Reset. We're going to have transhumanism. This is the stuff they're saying. Go back and watch our recent episodes on this. We've covered it extensively. Absolutely crazy. But fortunately, humanity is seeing through this. Lots of critics of this idiocy. Writing over at Big League Politics, we have Shane Trejo saying that this is basically the Vatican trying to rebrand corporate globalism. He pointed out that Pope Francis, who supposedly protected pedophiles while serving as Pope, is actually helping to destroy the West, right? Which, of course, the Catholic Church helped build. Going on to Glenn Beck's show, we had the Heartland Institute's Justin Haskins talking about how stakeholder capitalism is really just a new and improved phrase for the global elites to shut down small businesses, destroy their competition, and consolidate power so that they can rule the world, as he put it. Basically, only the wokest of the woke crony capitalists will survive. Everybody else will be destroyed or absorbed by the Borg. Even some of the top Catholic thinkers in America are exposing this, right? Over at The Remnant, a wonderful Catholic newspaper, you have the editor there, Michael Matt, saying that Catholics and Protestants need to unite to resist this. He says first they infiltrated the church and redefined Catholicism. Now they're infiltrating capitalism and redefining it along globalist communist lines. He actually said Francis is all in, and it looks like, he says, he even put the chair of St. Peter up for sale. Okay, these are really serious charges for a Catholic to make against the Pope, and yet that's what's going on. In fact, a huge coalition of very prominent Catholics in America actually asked President Trump a couple years ago to investigate whether the Obama regime and George Soros and other subversives had overthrown the previous Pope, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who was ousted under some very, very strange circumstances to make way for this Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, who many Catholics believe is actually a Marxist in Catholic clothing. Anyways, guys, we have a serious problem with this Council for Inclusive Capitalism with the Vatican, right? This is an effort to undermine free markets. It's an effort to undermine private property, the global prosperity that those bring, the blessings of the system that really God ordained, right? It was God who ordained that there should be private property. It was God who said, if you don't work, you don't eat, right? It was God who said that we need to love others. And the free market system is the system that forces us to do that, right? If you don't love others, if you don't treat others well, they won't come back to your business. They won't hire you, right? Free markets are really the best system for creating wealth. They're also, in my view, the system most in line with the Bible. And yet now we have governments terrorizing and locking down small businesses, bankrupting the middle class, and then showering trillions of our tax dollars on these mega corporations that are going to jump in bed with these globalist elites to basically hijack the global economy. Guys, if America and freedom and prosperity are going to survive, we have got to resist this agenda. We need to expose it. We need to stop it. You can start by sharing this video. Help us get the word out. YouTube hates us. They're doing everything to make sure you can't find this. So help get the word out, guys. Send this on, especially if you have Catholics in your life and your family and your neighbors, your leaders. Help get the word out, guys. This is critical. We need to understand what's going on. This is absolute tyranny that they intend for us. And incredibly, they're making it seem like it's for our own good. We can't let them get away with it, guys. I'm Alex Newman. You've been watching Behind the Deep State. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you all.
If you liked this video, then click that subscribe button with the little bell. If you didn't like this video, you're probably a member of the Deep State. Am I wrong? Prove it. Hit the subscribe button. Just kidding. Thanks again, folks. God bless.